Hello, everyone, and welcome to PowPodPlus, as we've called it once before. But our wonderful guest, Ansitru, Astrid, Lurdish, came and joined us for a little second go of it. Hi, Astrid. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
We are doing a thing that we've done once before on this show. We're doing it for a second time. Oh, Zach's here too. Zach, how are you?
Oh, I'm great. Thanks. I was like, why did I even turn record on my mic? I'm not even here.
It was just for a behind the scenes look. I just had to talk Zach into sticking around and recording a second part, and then immediately ignored him as soon as the show started.
Perfect.
But we're doing another pixel analysis and of the one we just discussed. So if you heard us talking about Haunter in our episode with Astrid, we're going to bring Haunter up on the screen right now. And I'm not going to pretend like there's viewers, because there aren't viewers, or there aren't listeners. There are viewers, not listeners. So I'm not going to talk to listeners. But I wanted to bring up Haunter's Sprite. This is his Sprite from Red and Blue. And what I did is I actually soaked all the colors of it just so we could get a look at his silhouette. And I think this is, and I think actually I'm just going to go ahead immediately. All of his sprites are lovely. I think he reads so well across all of these. And even if you didn't know this was a Pokemon, if you saw this, you would know there's something otherworldly about this, because you see these extending pixels beyond the outline of Haunter.
Yeah. Because I know it's Haunter, I can tell the sort of vague blob shape on the bottom left is supposed to be one of his hands. And you can tell as well, with the, I'm not sure, they're not ears or anything, but the spikes going out to the side, you can tell it's not going to be a cute and cuddly Pokemon. So they did really well on the silhouette.
Yeah, very spiky, which is, I think, reads well with all those Pokedex entries we read about how scary he can be. Zach, what do you think?
I mean, it's a good blob. It's definitely not on the ground. You can tell that from the blob.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, you don't have clear feet underneath or anything like that. So there's definitely something creepy going on here. I want to bring up, this is what he would look like on the original Game Boy. Kept those Game Boy colors in there. This is kind of that sort of rendition. Now that we see him on screen, one thing we'll see even clearer when we bring it into full color is this original Gengar is Gengar. I keep saying Gengar. The original Haunter is black, not purple. And I thought about looking into, or I actually tried to, I couldn't find the history of it, but I was wondering if perhaps in the anime, after they kind of colored him purple, made him a little more friendlier, if that influenced the design moving forward, because he's very black with kind of just a purple hue when we see him in full color.
Yeah, I think it kind of makes sense, though, with the Pokedex entries where they say he's hiding in the back, he's hiding in dark spots. It would make sense that he'd have to blend in.
I like that they basically utilize the kind of the in-between colors for the pixels, which I think are essentially, when we bring into full color, are going to be a dark purple and a light purple. They use those to essentially dither him out into a white background, which adds to the sense that he's like a ghoul, that he's not like a human, he's not like a fully bodied thing where he has a physical space that he's taking up. He's more of a presence, which I really like.
I will say, though, as a pixel artist, I'm immediately noticing the banding as well on the outside of the sprite. This is the oldest sprite that they made, right?
Yes,
and you can tell with the lighter color, and then you have the slightly darker green, and then it goes to the black. There are a couple of spots where the outlines they match perfectly, and you get this sort of banded effect. And that's something, when I started my pixel art, I was always told that's something you should never, never, never do, because it gives a sort of pillow shaded effect. And I think it's super neat to see on the older sprites. And I'm not sure if the people who worked on these were fully formed pixel artists, or if they were just illustrators who happened to work on this game as well.
Sure.
I think it's super cool that one of the biggest pixel don'ts, and you should never do this in your art, is actually in official game art, which just proves the rules are there to be broken. Because it works for the outlines.
Yeah. I feel the same way, because a lot of the early pixel art that I would try to do, which once again, I'm an aspiring artist. I'm not a Mr. Fancy or anything, but I would do that banding on the outside, and I would always look bad, and I would think to myself, but that seems right to me. That's how I think it should. So, but it does work well here. I think it fits well. Zach, any thoughts on the Game Boy colored version?
I'm really happy that they made him purple ultimately. For my own child's mind.
I don't think. Yeah, I think if they left him this deep black, I don't know if he'd have the popularity that he does today. My daughter was asking, actually, as I should have asked this in the main episode, but she was asking about if this were a plush, and I thought this would be a good question for you, Astrid. If this was a plush, how you would attach the hands, which I thought was you kind of just have to like have them have a part of the side that they're touching. I'm trying to like mimic it.
I think they just they attach to like
kind of have to be right there.
Yeah, exactly. What a great picture!
I think Velcro or a snap button would work actually, where you can detach them.
Oh, sure.
And also
maybe some Velcro or something like that.
Yeah. Or like even if you have strong magnets, you could. This is just me thinking as a crafter, but
that's
like
great
on the
too.
inside of the plush, you could have a large surface of like a very thin magnet, and then in the hands themselves, you could also add a tiny magnet so that you can sort of attach the hands wherever you want. Then, of course, the plush wouldn't be as snuggly because there's 2 magnets in there. But
well, I will say, Astrid,
cool.
If you do choose to make that, I will definitely buy one. And there will certainly be a Kotaku article written about you when Nintendo sues you. So that'd be huge. I brought up the colored version of the Ruby, or sorry, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm having a brain meltdown right now, of the red and blue pixel of the Sprite. I brought that up on the screen. This is what it would look like, I believe, if you put this in your red or blue in your Game Boy Color. And he's completely black. He has a dark, I would not even call that a dark purple, kind of like a mid purple and then a light purple on the outside. And I do think he comes alive as an image. I love his mouth here. I love the that they have these like pointy teeth. He's almost like an inverse jack-o'-lantern in that way, where he's dark on the outside and light on the inside. I guess that's what a normal jack-o'-lantern is. What am I talking about when you put the light in?
I think with the green color scheme though, it still kind of works because he's a ghost poison type, and the green reads a little more sickly and I don't know.
One other thing I like that I didn't mention, and you couldn't see in the silhouette, is they do have these pixels on the outside that are kind of reading as like, his form still kind of extending beyond his body. But one thing I like a lot is that those pixels, they're mostly in the light purple. Some of them are in the dark purple. And then you have like 2 that are in the black. And it's just, it gives this feeling that like, it's all of him. All of him is extending out. It's not just like, this outside part of him. He's all one big gaseous, ghostly blob, and it extends beyond himself.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's like he's still sort of forming himself together continuously. Yeah.
Well, like I said, this is one where I think they all end up being pretty nice. But I'm going to bring over the Sprite from, this would be from Gold and Silver, and this is the silhouette. And once again, I think actually, if I'm being honest, I think the silhouette doesn't read as nice as the one from Red and Blue. But I mean, if you know what you're looking at here, it immediately reads very well.
Yeah, I think the main issue with this silhouette is it could also be what's Pokemon called again? Like
I know exactly which one you're talking about.
I think.
Yes.
Like the Tyranitar pre-evolution.
Yes.
Because it also has that like crescent shape and then the spikes. I think the only difference are the hands that you can sort of see. Like this is what I do like about this Sprite. The silhouette is a bit clearer with the hands, where you can tell that they're sort of hanging to the side.
They use that like 1 pixel difference here you can see that it's separate. It's not, which is, as far as like a design standpoint, like if you make a human body that's like standing in a big star shape versus a human body that's standing in a constrained shape, it's easier for the star shape because you have lots of space to work with. And this reads a little better, that hand does, than the other part. I miss the little extending pixels beyond his body, but let's bring him up.
Yeah.
This is what he would look like if you put him in the original Game Boy, which you could do with oh my gosh, Gold and Silver. And I love this. This looks fantastic.
Yeah. Especially because he also got like that mischievous grin going on. Like you can tell he's up to no good because he's got that like half smile.
I think he goes from looking evil. I think he looks evil in the first one, but here he looks, mischievous is perfect. I think he looks a little more like a guy that, he'd be your buddy. Yeah, he'd be your buddy, and your parents would tell you not to hang out with him, but he'd still be your friend. Like you'd want to meet up with him regardless.
In this one, he looks like a Pokemon who just lives for April 1st.
Sure.
Yeah.
Zach, what do you think?
I agree. Like, I think if you kept moving forward with what like the originally it was looking like, you just get scarier and scarier. And this is when I feel like they started being like, hey, maybe we shouldn't make this children's game have the most terrifying ghost monster in it.
Sure.
And I thank them for that.
They reuse, which we're going to see as a red when I bring this into full color, but they reuse the color in his mouth to be the outline for his hands, which I think is very smart work. It allows them to have there be a little bit of overwork of his hands and his body. You use that same, I'm thinking let's just bring it into full color so we can see. Yeah. If you use that same purple to kind of cover up his hands, I don't know if that would read very clearly, but with the red, I think it reads nice. And the red as well is, if you're looking for scary colors, red's up there. Red, black, that's dark purple that he's working with. He's got all the scary colors.
Yeah, I think that's also why they kind of left the confetti pixels behind. Because if you're working with that darker purple and that red, it's not going to read as nice as the mid purple and the lighter purple. Because with those colors, you can get a sort of nice fade out from the body. Whereas with these are two very bright, very saturated, very in your face colors. Like if you use those to sort of trail out the body, it's going to look odd. Like it's going to look too busy. I think.
See, still mostly for I'm saying for our listeners. No, we're not going to put this out as a podcast. The people, you need to view this. You can't listen to people talk about pixel art without looking at it. But he's still mostly black here. He does have kind of more of a purple. It almost looks as though you're seeing him in shadow, and you can tell that his true form is purple, but he's still covered in black. So he's kind of heading in that direction. I like all the colors on this. I think it all reads very nicely, and I think even though the old one having kind of that entire purple as his hue, like that was the only color that we kind of were getting in there. And that works nicely in some contexts. I think this with the different colors, I think works well as well. Zach, anything to say before we move on to Ruby and Sapphire?
I'm not the expert, nor do I even know anything about it.
All
but I'll be
welcome.
honest. Yeah, I don't like the red around the hands. Okay, that's just me. Okay, and I'm sorry.
I think you know what. I think that's fair. I think that it's all problem solving, and that's like Brandon James Greer talked about this. I feel this way. My guess is maybe Astrid, you feel this way as well. Is that's kind of an exciting part of pixel art. Is you only have so many pixels to work with, so it's all like, okay, how do I make these hands work? These black hands on top of a black body. I could use the purple pixels. I only have 4 colors of pixels to work with. I could use white. I don't know if that's going to work because it makes his body looks like it's cuts off. But no, it's totally fair. I think that
is kind of what I do with my, I did a whole series of cottagecore pixels.
Yeah.
And for some of them, I used white outlines whenever something needed to be pulled more to the foreground.
Yeah.
I think it would have worked if they used a white outline on the hands, but then they would have also had to outline the entire body, or it would have looked out of place. Whereas now with the red outlines, it adds a kind of ghostly glow to it.
Sure.
Kind of. And I think it works. Like I said, if they used white, they would have had to use white around the entire sprite to sort of bring it all together. And that might have been overkill.
Well, the other thing
would have
is
made him look really good, because he'd be like, oh, it's like white floating angelic ghost that's floating.
Well, what I would say, you mean good as in nice.
Nice. Good is,
which I guess is also
nice,
whatever.
Good. Nice.
But it does actually, the context that you would see this pixel in was actually in battle. This would be when your opponent or you find a haunter in the wild. So it had white surrounding it. White was the color throughout the rest of it. So that might have been the issue of using a white outline on the hands, is that there wasn't really an outline outside of the main haunter because the rest of the screen was white. So it didn't feel, if you did white, it wouldn't feel like an outline on the rest of the haunter.
Well, the red hands just remind me, I feel like it looks like they're drenched in blood. That's my idea that I
ketchup.
And he's like, he just destroyed the previous Pokemon. His hands are covered in blood, and he's like, and now they're floating here, waiting again. And I'm like, I mean, it works for me that it's scary. So there you go.
going back to the Pokedex tidbit, maybe he just got his hands on a depressed person.
There you go.
Someone who's sad.
Watch out.
He just catches them in a Pokeball. He's not
Yeah, right.
let's bring up the one from Ruby and Sapphire. I think so. It's we get the same sort of thing where we can see the very spiked body. It still kind of looks like the Pokemon you were talking about earlier. But you have this kind of claw hand here, which I think it works very nicely. You only get one because his other hand, I think, is going to be sitting right here. But this claw hand, I think, it looks a little crabbish, but at the same time, like you can tell that it is an appendage in that way.
Yeah.
Floating bug. That's what I see.
It is cool though. Like they always keep the spikes in there. It's like the
He's
original
a spiky boy.
Pokemon.
Yeah. Well, let's bring him up in full color. You can take a look at this.
Oh wow.
You know what, Zach? I forgot. And I'm going to say for the listener again because I'm forgetting. But they keep the red hands. They keep the red outlines surrounding the hands. But definitely more colorful. I mean, they're taking advantage of the Game Boy Advance's color palette that's available, but it's still pretty limited. I mean, when we saw Squirtle, I think Squirtle had 20 plus colors that was making up his design. Everything said and done on the Haunter, I mean, he's 12 colors. And I mean, he's a less detailed Pokemon. He doesn't have like a shell and like, chest. Like he's just purple and red mouth, and that's it. But they do a lot with it.
Yeah, I will say though, like looking at this sprite, if newer pixel artists worked in this style with like the various gradient ramps, they would be picked apart. Like, I spot so many things where when I was still learning pixel art, they just told me, no, don't do this. Like the gradient ramps that are just from color to color instead of interconnected, no hue shifting whatsoever, and then the outlines are sort of selectively shaded. Or like on the right hand where there's this one straight pixel that sort of makes a claw on the I think it's the second digit here. Like that one outlier here.
On the big hand too.
And those are all things where, or for instance, on the other hand, where they started shading and then they missed a pixel because it would have banded with the purple ones here on the thumb, I think it is.
Okay.
And that's stuff like if a newer pixel artist worked in this exact style, they would get picked apart. They'd get so much constructive between brackets criticism.
Sure.
And it's cool to see that it's actually, this is official game art.
Yeah.
I actually kind of want to do a small experiment where I post sprites like this and then ask for feedback.
We tried to manipulate Brandon James Greer into making a Squirtle sprite for us. and he played along. He said he would and then never did. Maybe he'll still do it. Brandon, if you're listening, we love you, baby. But we want to see that Squirtle sprite. I will say, it is interesting seeing the choices that they go with. You mentioned no hue shifting. I think across the board, you don't really see that in Pokemon. And I wonder if a reason for that is they just want it to feel natural in every setting. I mean, if you're having a Pokemon fight at night, you're just kind of going to, you don't want to have to create this new lighting engine that's going to affect it, that where you're going to see those sorts of different effects on the sprite. You don't want to have one that's feeling very tossed towards one color versus another Pokemon that's tossed way towards another color. I think the idea is that everything's underneath a white light and a black dark because you're just trying to get everything to work together. So it is it's doing its. I think it is very nice, but I think the reason for some of the choices on here is to make sure that it works within any setting.
Yeah.
It has blood hands.
It still has blood hands.
It is super cool though. It's just like it is. Yeah, it's super cool to see art like this when like if another artist posted something like it and not in the Pokemon style or not as official Pokemon art, like they would get so many comments telling them you should be doing this, you should not be using a true black, you should not be selectively outlining, you should be hue shifting, and like there would be so much that
Yeah.
more established pixel artists would sort of immediately jump on. And it still works for the sprites. So that's sort of, it's a big sticking point for me, but like the gatekeeping you sometimes see in the pixel art community, or the you should be making pixel art this way and this way only. Like these Pokemon sprites prove that you can pretty much chuck all the rules and still make pretty awesome art.
Yeah, definitely. So, if you're new to pixel art like I am, try and learn those rules, try to learn that, but then, fit it within your own style. Because as we saw within all these sprites, they kind of break the rules, but they, at the same time, are all very nice looking in their own right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't kick any of these sprites out of bed. I don't know. What else do we want to say? Anything else in closing? I think Haunter across the board, pretty looking Pokemon.
Yeah.
Like, Zach, anything you want to say in closing?
I just keep looking at the blood hands. That's all I see. That's at this point just terrifying me, and I just don't want to be sad. And I don't want to be outside.
All right, hold on. We'll bring up for one last time. That's the nice Haunter for everyone.
Now I can go to sleep tonight.
For all our listeners of this video only thing we're going to post, but there's my daughter's lovely picture of a very nice Haunter.
I love it.
Astrid, anything else you want to say in closing?
I'm just, like I said, I'm super happy I get to gush about one of my favorite ghost types, and that I get to analyze the pixel art, and also that I can sort of impart the message that the rules are meant to be broken, as these Pokemon sprites prove. So if you're just a starting pixel artist, like, of course, learn the rules, but then as soon as you've learned them, also rip them up from time to time. Because like, hey, look at the Pokemon sprites. They have banding. They have color ramps that don't use hue shifts. They have selective outlining. They have like every huge pixel don't. And it works.
It's so funny. I don't want to draw out our episode, but like, a lot of Pokemon fans, and frankly, I'm kind of there myself, complain about the 3D models and, long for the days of the pixel art. But despite the fact that a lot of the pixel art from a technical standpoint may have issues, it's so lovely. We like it so much. So, so if you're, I guess that's our message here today. If you look at yourself and you think I'm from a technical aspect ugly, no, there's many people out there who find you beautiful, including the people on this podcast, and many pixel artists.
Great. That's a beautiful message.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Astrid, thank you for joining us, listeners, viewers, listeners out there. Everyone, have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Good night.